was spinning and talking to the South African government, and Jacob Zuma at the time was head of SADC, and they'd been doing this for a long time, but saying that you do not want G40 in charge of Zimbabwe. You do not want Grace Mugabe running Zimbabwe. And conveniently for him, and for Lacoste, Mnangagwa, the G40 and Grace were their worst enemies because of her behavior, the way she attacked war veterans, the way she attacked Mnangagwa at rallies. Her behavior was a bad PR move by the G40 faction.
Yeah.
She was their own worst enemy. I mentioned this in the book, that she was their protection because she was married to the president. Okay? But she's also the Achilles heel of the G40, and I'm sure that again, like Jonathan Moore said, because I cannot believe they're watching some of the things she's saying at political rallies going, oh, this is a good move. I don't think so. I think she had become very powerful, and this she gave the Lacoste faction, or she gave the diplomatic community, the regional community, reason to think this woman is a bad news, which helped with the Mnangagwa and helped with Chris Mutsvangwa.
To sweeten the whole coup.
To sweeten, exactly, to say, you know what, like we've seen her. We've seen what she's, there was the incident in Johannesburg, which I mentioned, with the model where she assaulted a young girl, Gabriella Engels, in a hotel in South Africa. I mentioned in the book how Casper was actually, he says part of that operation.
When it was dancing, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He knew what the behavior was like. So all these things played into the hands of the wider narrative that Mnangagwa is much better option than the G40 and Grace Mugabe.
Okay, let's take another break, and then in this segment we are going to talk about the escape.
Okay.
And then Chiwenga's, coming back as well and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we see that at one stage, Constantino Chiwenga was the general, went to China. Yeah. At the same time,
Mnangagwa is in
South Africa. First, let's start with the escape. How Mnangagwa left Zimbabwe. Just briefly, there was this kind of up and down in Dare, the intelligence and all those kind of characters. Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, he left. Yes. So tell us a bit about the escape.
Yeah. Briefly. So he was fired on. It's the Monday afternoon of, I forget the dates now. November the 6th, 5th or 6th? 7th. So he's fired. He goes back home, and he gets a call later. But his son, Emerson Mnangagwa Jr., who I interviewed for many, many hours, I interviewed his two brothers and others around that group of people close to Mnangagwa. They get a warning.
And others.
Exactly. They get a warning call that you better leave tonight. People are coming to kill you. And that's when was put in motion. And it's a crazy story. I don't know if this has been questioned by people, but I have 9 sources. I have WhatsApp messages. There's an incredible, one of the guys who tried to help him is a friend of Mnangagwa Jr., who is a businessman, a young Indian Zimbabwean businessman. And when I'm told this story, yes, exactly. Amir Naran, a very a brilliant business guy, a young guy, and I've been told this story multiple times by this team, that this is what happened. There was a medevac was arranged by a guy who had a private jet company. They were going to rescue Mnangagwa. He had to pretend he was ill, and they were going to take him in an ambulance. And the guy who was arranging this had to escape a restaurant through the window in the trunk of a car. And I'm hearing this, and I'm saying, well, this sounds outrageous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost as outrageous as Tom Ellis telling me the story of Casper. So I say to one of these people, well, put me in touch with this magical guy who claims he can get you out of the country. So I speak to him, and he tells me word for word exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people I interviewed in this book, and if you were in Zimbabwe at the time, you felt you were living in a movie. It was beyond reality. It was like it defied reality, because the escape, it's 48 hours, these guys are on the run. There's the border interact, they get to the Motari border in the middle of, early morning before the borders open. And they've worked out that they cannot escape via the airports.
They have to go straight there.
Their one option, they realized, when they nixed the ambulance, the medevac, the airports were teeming with CIO. They made their escape to the Mutare border, which is actually where I come from. I come from the town of Mutare. And they were foiled at the border post because word had gone out, and this is from the police, the CID report from the incident.
Yeah.
Word had gone out that you must be on the lookout for senior politicians trying to leave the country. And that's why they couldn't get through the border that morning. And then there's a whole day in Mutare where the then vice president, or fired vice president, is now hiding in the Rumba Mountains. His sons are like sleeping in a car or hiding in a car
and
wash.
up getting to this lady's house and
Exactly,
getting food and all those kind of things.
Exactly, she
Yeah,
helps
but
them.
Maybe after from there, then there was this military intelligence intervention
Yes.
from the border post,
Yeah.
and then thereafter they cross the border. They're supposed to be picked by these Somalis.
Yes, the Somali taxi driver.
That's right. And then Mr. Mnangagwa ends up in a Nanga's house. How does he land into that?
No, so when they're crossing the border, right? When they're crossing the border at night, these are I've been to these the trails where border jumpers, right?
Yeah.
North of Marymount College, it's the way a Zimbabwean, a working Zimbabwean, an unemployed Zimbabwean will walk through the bush on paths over the border through the old minefield.
We'll be trapped there.
Yeah, there's still an old minefield. Occasionally you hear explosions still in that part of the country, right?
Yeah.
And Mnangagwa Jr. tells me the story several times about how on this journey they're accompanied by 3 military intelligence guys. Okay?
Yeah.
Everyone originally thought that they had just made this journey on their own. I actually got the names of the 3 MI guys.
But you couldn't talk to them, right?
I couldn't talk to them. I didn't talk to them, no.
Yeah.
But I got the names of them, and I've seen WhatsApp messages, right? And he then tells a story about as they're going, you have to go and see the guide. They also have a guide who says, okay, while you're going through here, you have to go and see this Nanga.
Yeah.
There's an incident which he tells me where they were stopped by an armed guy who he thought was Renamo. If that happened, I think it's... And the Somali came later, actually. This is an interesting story, because you can question this, okay? Is he telling me, is this nonsense? Is he just exaggerating things? And it's quite possible he's a 34-year-old.
One person would think maybe this is a little bit of an exaggeration.
Exactly, yeah. So, and quite possibly it is. But I heard about the Somali taxi driver, right? Oh, there was a Somali that we're going to get to take my father and I to Chimoyo at first, I think, and then to Beira, right? So I had this written down. Several months later, I'm in Harare meeting a former war veteran, who's a senior political guy. I'm in the hotel, in the Sheraton Hotel, which is now Rainbow Towers. And we're sitting there, and he knows nothing about my communication with Mnangagwa Jr. or his team.
Yeah.
And he points to a guy in the Sheraton Hotel. He says, see that guy there? That's the Somali guy who drove them in Mozambique. And I looked at him and said, what? He said, there's a Somali guy who was a taxi driver, and he's now in Zimbabwe and he's staying in this hotel. And I thought, this all fits together.
Yeah.
I also have Casper. Casper is communicating to Mutsvangwa about the MI guys. No, he's going to cross the border. So this is the incredible thing about it, is that I pieced together what seems like a fantasy, and there may be some exaggeration, but you can piece together that these things all match up. I found the pilot who Justice Maposa hired to go and collect
from
them
Mozambique.
From Mozambique, I interviewed him. And he says, no, this is what I picked them up. I was at the airport. They were frightened that they weren't going to get through customs in Beira.
They stayed there for a long time, actually, waiting for...
A number of hours. There was a lot of delays. And there's another theory that actually they did know who they were, and they didn't want them to pass through. But that maybe they were behind the scenes, there were communications with the Mozambican government who did let them through. I don't know about that. But but again, like, there may well be exaggerations in their story, but I've matched the people.
And then this goes maybe with the same thing when we talk about Constantino Chiwenga when he came back from China at the airport. You know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And those characters that you actually feature in your book, some of them are they real characters, or maybe people that fed the information about what happened at the airport? Were you actually quoting from sources, or you're quoting some historical facts?
No, so with you're talking about the airport operation where there's this special forces team, right? So that's a very good point. So I interviewed, as part of the book, I mean, I couldn't just tell one side of the story. I spent a lot of time speaking to Professor Jonathan Moyo. I spoke once or twice. He asked me not to mention his side of the story too much, Saviour Kaskawere. As many of the people removed by the coup as I could, okay, and told their story, right? And I know that Professor Moyo and others doubt that that operation happened at all, right? So I mentioned in the very first chapter, in that chapter about Chiwenga returning and the airport operation, I said, if this happened, as they say it is, it's like a brilliant, the most amazing operation ever, okay?
Imagine these men wearing some, you know,
exactly. These guys who
overalls and carrying AK-47s and, you know.
It's a well-reported story in Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
Every newspaper, a lot of senior respected journalists reported this.
That's right.
And again, like, I questioned it, and I know it's been denied by certain people who were removed by the coup. I had a source, a senior retired colonel in the Zimbabwe Defense Force, who told me, this is what happened. This is how it went down. I write the book, I quote that military guy, and I say an anonymous military guy says this is exactly what happened. Interestingly, the book was reviewed by a great writer in Namibia, Zimbabwe and Namibia. And he emailed me after reading it, and he said, I have my father-in-law was in the military. He said exactly the same thing as you said. Okay, and other writers I know who I respect have said that's exactly how it went down. And again, it sounds outrageous, and maybe all these people are falling for some spin.
Yeah.
But again, the other thing is, if you would have followed the events of the time, you would know that General Chiwenga was the only person standing between G40 and Grace Mugabe winning this game.